Okay, oh, well, we'll just do it this way. So, how many of you have seen phishing? Nothing is working.
American Airlines.
Phishing campaigns related to American Airlines or PayPal or ADP or FedEx. Anybody? All right. So this is information sharing. So it may not be a very grand example of it, but it just shows the mechanics where somebody's asking a question and we're getting feedback on it. And the information may not be useful to you, but it could be information that's useful to the person asking. It's a little bit about me. I'll get back to this in a second. So I work for a financial services company in Tampa, Florida. We're based in New York City. I do information privacy. Just started that last week. Ran the incident response team before that. Did a couple of years in the Navy, worked for their Cyber Defense Command doing computer forensics, incident response. I also co-host the SecureBit podcast, so check us out, securebit.com. Subscribe to that, listen to us, give us good feedback. But back to that example. So if you did look around the room, you'll notice that not everybody raised their hands. And the negative feedback is also very useful. It's very good to know if somebody didn't see something you're seeing, because it kind of helps show whether you're being targeted or not. So why do we do anything like this? So a lot of the times we have questions that we're trying to answer, and we don't know the answer immediately offhand, but chances are somebody else has already seen it. Similar to the way that you'll Google something for a problem you're trying to solve, somebody else has already found it, you type in your answer, and even before you finish typing the question, you already found out the answer. So why don't we do this? Well, a lot of times companies value secrecy over sharing, but what I try to convey is that security, maybe unless you're a company that sells security, really shouldn't be a competitive advantage. So one of the things that I think everybody here should do is try to encourage your companies at home to promote information sharing within your groups. As the saying goes, a rising tide lifts all the ships. And so as an entire security community and in each of our individual sectors, as we can help each other be more secure, we become more secure as a group. So my perspective from this is financial services. Like I said, I work for a financial services company. We do clearing and settling. So when I do information sharing, I share with banks and stock exchanges and clearinghouses and card processors. So that's where the basis of my talk is coming from, my experiences there. But so a lot of the things we share, really easy things to share, is indicators. So what have we seen on our network? Did we see an IP address, an email address? Is there a certain subject of an email that's come in? What are the headers of an email? And even down to full packet captures. If you're in a trusted group, those are things that you can easily share. So any events we share as well. If we're being targeted by a DDoS, or if there are certain scans that come in, phishing campaigns, anything else, we try to let all of our peers know what's going on, because if it's coming at us, chances are it's coming at them, and it gives them a chance to better defend themselves. And last thing is intelligence. So there's hundreds or thousands of different companies doing the same thing we are, and we all have our own people doing our own research. We're all into our own little things, and we see things in our tunnel vision, but it's helpful to put everything together with everybody that's doing their own research. So any intelligence that we gather, we help share with anybody else. So how do you get involved? There's a lot of different verticals, different sectors, and one of the things that has come along is information sharing and analysis centers. So in my particular case in financial services, we have the FSI-SAC, and that's a group of anybody that does financial services can join, but there's many others that are out there for different services. So one of the things the ISAC is trusted. So there's sharing agreements between the ISAC and every member firm. So whenever we share something with the ISAC and with the other member firms, we have a sense of assuredness that the information is not going to get out. We can trust the people that we're sharing with. And analytics. So the ISAC itself provides analytical services through their SOC, and information that we share to other firms Their analysts will contribute it back and give us their take on it. Sharing, which is what this whole talk is about, is how do you combine and fuse all these things together. So an ISAC will take all the inputs from everybody and come up with research papers and things that can be shared with a broader audience. And so for sharing, we share within the ISAC. So firm to firm, we can share. And then the ISAC itself will take what we have and we can share it outside to different ISACs or even to the general public. And the third way we share is going to the government. So we can get lots of help from them with regard to intelligence and things that they've seen. And really, the way it's been recently is we give them everything we have and maybe we'll hear something back. But it's getting better. We're working on that. So the ISAC services that they provide is risk mitigation. So within the sharing group, you have companies ranging from a couple dozen people up to 100, 200, 300,000 people. So there's help. If a smaller company is having a problem, they can go out to the bigger companies, and we work together as a team, even though we may be competitors on the business side. But when it comes to information security, we understand that there's really no competitive advantage there. That flows into incident response too. So when somebody does have a problem, they can reach out to us and we can lend a hand where necessary. And again, information sharing, which is what everything I'm talking about now. So I'm not sure what everybody works in. There's different verticals all around, different industries, and a lot of them have their own information sharing centers. And so the National Council of ISACs was put together to coordinate the sharing between all these different ISACs. And I'm just going to go through these really quick. So communication sector, if you work in telecom, anything like that, there's an information sharing group that you can join, you can share, and have trusted relationships. Electricity has their own. Emergency services, healthcare, information technology, maritime, the state and local governments. So this one is sponsored by the Center for Internet Security, and we get a lot of good information out of them. They have a perspective on different traffic that not a lot of us are privy to. Nuclear, they have their own information sharing group. Public transportation, so this could be buses, trains, anything like that. Real estate, so this may not seem very important, but with physical attacks on buildings and things, this has come to the forefront for public occupancy. Research and education, anybody that works for a university or any sort of research institute can join this and share information. Supply chain, this is one thing that affects pretty much everybody. The security of the supply chain is key to the security of what we do, whether we buy things that we put on our network or even to the endpoint customer devices. So whenever they're sharing information and working together to make it better is better for everybody. The Water ISAC covers them. And lastly is the one I belong to, which is the Financial Services ISAC. So the White House realized that this is a good thing too. So the White House came up with Presidential Policy Directive 21, which established critical infrastructure and key resources. And they have identified 16 different sectors that they consider critical infrastructure, and that's what they throw their support behind. So with each of these, there are what they call sector-specific agencies that they use to promote information sharing between the private sector and the government. So within these 16 key sectors, each one has a sector-specific agency. So DHS has the largest share of it, and I'm not going to go through all of them here, but so what they want to do is anytime you have information that could be pertinent to other people, they want you to share it up with them. Department of Defense obviously does all the DoD stuff. Department of Energy. Treasury is what I go to for my financial services. For food and agriculture, there's a joint sector-specific agency with USDA and Health and Human Services. And HHS also covers healthcare and public health, and EPA covers water. So there's really a great opportunity to share back with the government. And one thing that they're doing, which was beneficial to me, was so I used to be in the Navy, and when I transitioned to the private sector, I lost my clearance and went inactive. But with the public-private partnerships that we have with the government, they're able to hold your clearance even though you work in the private sector. So that can enable sharing back to you from classified indicators that you may not normally be able to see. One of the challenges that we've had in my organization and that I've seen with many other organizations is getting the legal department's buy-off on this, because everybody wants to have really tight lips. Nobody wants to give information out, and everything's a secret. So legal agreements is one of the important things that an ISAC can do. And along with that is non-disclosure agreements. So you can be assured that any information that you share out will remain with the people that you explicitly share it with. And privacy statements that go along with that as well. So whenever we share information, if I want to talk to somebody and I want to give them an information, I need to have an agreement between me and that person. And that's pretty easy when you want to share with one person. But when you bring another person into the mix, that complicates it. So now A already has an agreement with B, but now C wants to come in and share. So now C has to work out some deal with A, and then C has to work out with some deal with B. And each of those is time and money. It's a separate agreement that your legal department has to review, approve it, and it has to go all the way up. And it could take weeks or months and probably cost several thousands of dollars. And so we have A, B, C, D, E, and so they're all information sharing, but each one of them has to have an individual agreement with each other entity that they want to share with. And that's very complex, very expensive, and very time consuming, and really doesn't encourage the information sharing. It probably won't even happen at all. So when F decides they want to come in, F has to go to A, and then to B, to C, and then to D, and then to E. And by the time they do that, the information that they want to share, the time sensitivity of it probably has no value anymore. So in my particular sector, we have 3,700 different members that are sharing information with each other. And for us to go through 3,700 different groups and try to figure out how to share that would be impossible. So this goes out the window. But what we do have is a simplified version with an ISAC being right in the center. So what I do is, if I'm A, I create an agreement with the ISAC. It's reviewed once by my legal department, and I know that anything I share with the ISAC and the other member firms will be safe and secure, and that there are consequences if anybody breaches any of those agreements. So when G decides to show up, instead of going around to A, B, C, D, E, and F and negotiating contracts and agreements and NDAs with every one of them, all they have to do is agree to the same one that all of the other firms have agreed upon, and it's with the ISAC. And one of the other benefits with that is all of those other member firms have already reviewed that with their legal department, and it gives the new firm a sense of confidence that it's been reviewed and they should be able to trust it. But in addition to ISACs, we kind of get constrained within our vertical, we get complacent, and we don't really get the big picture of what's happening. So beyond ISACs, it's good to get perspectives from different industries. And to facilitate that, we have private information sharing groups. So what that does, it combines the sectors into one group that you can share across. So in financial services, I can talk to somebody who's over in telecommunications. I talk to people that work at Cisco and all different kinds of companies, oil and gas, and they see things, a lot of things are similar to me, but they may see them ahead of time, and that gives me advanced warning so I can protect my network. And with the private information sharing group, there is no sector-specific agency, so you do have the option to keep the government completely out of it. And depending on the information you're trying to share, that may be a good thing for you. And it really gives you great access to talent. So in my particular vertical, we're financial services. We're not really key on all of the advanced research and development that a technology company may have or that a research company may have. So we can tap into those analysts and get the information back that can help us in our jobs. And the legal and sharing agreements with the private information sharing groups are pretty similar to what we have with an ISAC. The particular one that I participate in is Red Sky Alliance. They started up a couple years ago, really to deal with APT and other persistent threats. And just check them out. So the way to encourage sharing is through automation. So automated sharing is fast. So in the financial services company, in our industry, we have a security automation working group. And that's a partnership between us and financial services and with the government and with MITRE. So they're coming up with some protocols called STIX and TAXI. So STIX is the Structured Threat Information Sharing Expression. And so what that is the language of how to share stuff. And TAXI is the method of getting it from point A to point B. And the more people that we get on board with this and that can put their information into this format, we can rapidly get the information from us to other people and get it to our analysts where it makes a lot of difference.
Have you looked at CRIT? There's a tool called CRIT.
Crits, yes.
What do you think of that one?
I haven't personally touched it, but other people on my team have, and they're really running with it. So a new idea that kind of emerged on Twitter back in February is sharing boring stuff too. So stuff like IP addresses, indicators, attacks and stuff, that's the more exciting stuff. But what about policies and procedures and documents and stuff? Whenever you write stuff in your own company, you're writing policies that are probably pretty similar to what everybody else in their company is writing. And what if we had some sort of a repository or a way to do peer reviews on your own documents, but you would be able to trust the person that's reviewing them? I'm sure nobody wants to publish their internal documents up on Pastebin for somebody to look at, but if you had an agreement between people, you could easily do that. So it started out on Twitter. Steve Warby was saying he was working on a security assessment questionnaire looking at cloud hosting. And so I responded saying, yeah, I'm doing the exact same thing. I really was. We were doing the exact same thing in my company. So he wondered, how many different people are doing this exact same thing at the same time, and how much time could we save if we could just look at everybody else's work? So GD Bassett chimed in saying we need basically a Stack Overflow for InfoSec so we can share our documentation and get stuff done without reinventing the wheel. So I chimed back again. Peer review would be great, but how do we break out of our confidentiality policies? And a couple tweets later, Gabe wants to start the InfoSec Policy Institute so we can have a clearinghouse for our policies. And I think that's a pretty good idea. I'm not really sure where to go with it yet, but I think InfoSec peer reviewing beyond just the people that are sitting across from your desk would be a really good thing to get perspectives from people that don't work in my industry that have experienced other things that I can flow back into my policies would make them a lot better and more applicable, I think. So I think it's good. Hopefully other people do and we can start something. Probably keep it going on Twitter, keep the conversation going. So my message is never stop sharing. You have any questions?
So indicators are cool. I've seen people sharing indicators of compromise. I work at a big manufacturing company that has been labeled in the media. My concern, that's when somebody who deals with this stuff, is indicators of compromise, OpenIOC, STIX, TAXI, they all have kind of a bad smell that reminds me of antivirus static signatures. Before we get too far down that same ugly path of a 50,000 line DAT file equivalent, how do we get past that? How do we think about these things in a better way?
So that's where I think with the privacy agreements and the NDAs come into play. So rather than saying, I saw this IP address, well, where did you see this IP address? What did you see? What did you see? When did you see it? What's it attacking? What are the things that are surrounding it? Where instead of just giving somebody a list of IPs that have no context around it, if you can trust the people you're sending them to, you can give them everything you know.
Yeah, I'm watching a bunch of people churn over APT1 without having a time context and things like that. And it's just like, it's a good start, but it's one step away from being a signature-based APT1.
Yeah, indicators without a freshness state really are useless.
Okay.
So one of the things that I have trouble with is that a lot of compromise are coming through the supply chain, right?
Right.
So you figure out all the stuff you need to do before you hit your main target, and you're already 75% there by the time you hit the person you're really going after. The main problem is there's nothing for the supply chain as far as we are inexpensive, right? So
Right.
small companies that provide the supply chain, where do they go to get open source or freely available indicators that can bring them into the same type of detection that the big guys?
So that goes back into those private information sharing companies. So in addition to getting the indicators to them, they can also communicate back saying, hey, we're seeing something. They may be an electronic supplier that you use in a widget down the line. But if you know that they saw something 2 months ago and that you're going to be receiving parts from them, that's good information.
Take a look at SIP. SIP's another good tool for that, good source.
Still not what I'm looking for.
What are you looking for?
Looking for a way that companies can automatically share information that doesn't cost them money, and that their whole legal department doesn't have to get involved in. Because a lot of the stuff really is anonymous. Like if you see an attack and you pull a signature out of it and say, you should look for this, that doesn't tell anybody. There's no legal reason to not share that. But yet we still have this legal framework that says, no, you better not share that.
But that's what I'm trying to get away from. If you just say, go look for this, that doesn't mean anything for me. I want you to say, go look for this, and this is why you should go look for this. This is what we saw, this is when we saw it, and this is why it should mean something to you.
And I'm saying that's not available to me.
It's not, but it is available through the information sharing agreements, both public and private and sector-specific frameworks.
And a pointer to someplace where you can